Hello and welcome to the This Works For Me Virtual Summit. I'm your host, Fernpate Watson. I am the Director of the Faculty Development Center at Murray State University. In this summit, I will be having conversations with individuals who will be sharing practical strategies that have worked for them. And we hope that you will find many of these strategies useful to help you succeed in higher education and beyond. With me today is Dr. Sid Martin. Dr. Martin, thank you very much for taking the time to share with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really enjoying this.
Yes, I'm delighted to have you. Now I'm going to open the floor for you to share a little bit about yourself. Could you tell us who you are, where you're from, and what you do?
Sure. My name is Sid Martin. I teach here at Murray State University in Murray, Kentucky. I'm not originally from Murray. I've spent much of my career in the Northeast and have worked in private industry prior to starting to teach at Murray State about 5 years ago. I really enjoy being part of the university here, and I especially like Murray, Kentucky with the warmer weather.
I definitely understand. I do too. Yes. And so, Dr. Martin, the title of your strategy is Developing Videos and Assessment for Online Classes. Could you help us understand what impressed you to start using this strategy and how has it worked for you?
Okay. Well, within the engineering department here, we wanted to start moving our courses to being online. And we had some challenges that we wanted to overcome. And there were some suggestions that what we would do is take our standard lectures and put them online just as we were giving them in the classroom. And we tried this a bit and it just didn't work. So we started working on breaking our lectures down into shorter 5-minute, maybe 8-minute segments, sometimes a little bit shorter, sometimes a little bit longer. And then doing short assessments of the learning that happened. These lectures would be towards our learning objectives for the course, and we'd want to assess how the students understood these shorter lectures. What I've done is developed in Canvas a short quiz, sometimes 3 or 4 questions, looking for 2 to 3 or 4 sentence responses. And this gets away from the multiple choice approach, and so perhaps maybe we don't have as much in the way of students helping each other during these assessments. These short online assessments help, I think, because it takes some of the pressure off of that one great big midterm exam that might happen. And I try to avoid midterm assessment by having many multiple short quizzes during these classes. I think this has been pretty effective in that the students get to assimilate what they've been exposed to in the lecture, and then they have to write out their answer, which I think helps with the learning experience.
Yes, and what I like about your strategy is that the assessments that you are describing are linked to the objective, those little mini assessments that you're including. So what has been the students' reaction to this strategy?
Well, the students tell me that they enjoy the course. more so than some other courses. Student evaluations of the class have been very favorable. Or classes have been, they've all been fairly favorable, and the feedback has been strong. I've gotten a lot of good feedback that students like that the pressure to perform is somewhat reduced because they don't have this one great big milestone that they have to overcome. And that taking some time to think after the lecture, they tell me it's good to do some reflection and to get that chance to put their thoughts on paper and get feedback from me. I tend to grade quite often throughout the day and even on weekends as I can. So the students often get a response within 24 hours of them having taken the assessment. So they get near immediate feedback as to how they're performing, and what I like is if there's a misconception, we can fix that fairly quickly. And sometimes I'm also learning myself from their responses, as many of the students that I'm teaching are non-traditional, and or they're at work during some shift during the day and taking the course alternate to their time at work. But they also provide me information about, oh, I just had this problem at work, or this is a problem that I'm having at work. And sometimes the learning experience goes both ways.
Wow. And as you're talking, I had to think about the type of feedback that you're giving, because you mentioned that it's not just multiple choice. The
Yes.
students are answering open-ended questions. So that brings me to the question, is this a little bit time consuming? So on one hand, you have to dedicate time to give them feedback within 24 hours, like you said. And also, you had also mentioned that there was the other option of just recording the lectures in the class and just dropping it into Canvas, but you decided not to do that. You decided to chunk the lectures and assess these students on the mini lectures. So it would seem as if there's additional work involved. Could you help us understand that?
Yes, and there may be some additional work involved with this approach. And, I've had some courses that have been a little bit more automated, where the students responded to multiple choice type questions, and those are nice. And I do intersperse one or two of those on occasion where I think it's appropriate, but those do make it, the multiple choice it is easier, but the getting the assessment back and being able to read what the students have written helps me with the course. If my videos are effective, if what I've tried to present has come across well, so I'm able to do changes that improve my own approach to teaching. And I'm a little bit different than your average engineer. I have a bachelor's and master's in electrical engineering and an EDD, an educational doctorate. So I'm very interested in the effectiveness of my teaching. So it is a little bit more effort, particularly, when you get a larger number of students, more than 40 in a classroom. It can take up a lot of time to do this grading. But I have to say that I do enjoy it too. It's part of my own teaching experience, and it helps me feel as if I've been self-actualized, and I'm enjoying the course myself.
Wow. It seems as if the time that you are investing in doing this is really worth it. It's worth it because your students are benefiting and you are benefiting.
That's correct. Yeah.
And I like your perspective. I'm impressed with how you look at it. That the time that you're taking to grade these students, be it 30 or over that, or 40, you really are seeing it as an investment that's really helping you and your students. Wow. So I imagine that there might be viewers out there watching, and they might be saying, well, Dr. Martin, that strategy has worked for you. You know, you could really have a good attitude towards grading these students, giving them feedback, and really seeing the benefit for you and your students. I'm not quite sure if that could work for me, you know, perhaps because of the time factor involved or other things. What would be some preliminary steps that they could take to just try to start trying this strategy out?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Is not everybody's going to have the same approach that I do, but I think just taking some simple steps to break up lectures, that could be helpful, and then try a short assessment after the lecture, and maybe in the way that I've described, with a few open-ended questions that match the learning objectives for the course, and experience that immediate or somewhat immediate experience from the students to see how effective the method is. Not everyone is going to want to do this type of assessment. I understand we all have challenges and things that go on with our lives that can interrupt this. But I think just those couple of things, break up a few lectures, put in a module, you know, ask some questions, get some feedback, ask the students what they thought, and just go from there.
I really like that, Dr. Martin. And viewers, you should write this down, what he said. Include a few assessments that match the objectives. Because alignment is just so important.
Yes.
It makes sense for us to assess, and the assessments are not aligned with our learning objectives. So definitely that's important. And thanks for reminding us about that. And I like what you mentioned, really get the students' feedback along the way. That is so important, because that will help you to make necessary revisions if you need to, based on your feedback. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Martin. And are there any resources that you would recommend for our viewers to look at?
Yes, there is one resource that I recommend, and the book is on STEM, or focused within STEM, and but I don't think that after having read it that it doesn't apply across you know, to any college or area of study. It's called Teaching and Learning STEM, a practical guide. I'm sorry. It's written by Felder and Brent, and it was published in 2016. And I found this is a really good resource for looking at things such as active learning and some of what we were just talking about, aligning our learning objectives to our assessments. And not only that, but the power of allowing individuals to come back and re-respond to that assessment to show that they have an improved understanding, and perhaps even allowing a multiple grading opportunity based on that new feedback. I think there's a lot of things to read in there in this book that could help you to think about things a little bit differently. I enjoy the book. I recommend it.
Yeah. And I could see how you could recommend it to people outside of your field. I remember when I was in my PhD program, one of the first things that they told us in the field is that as instructional designers, you have to understand that good teaching is good teaching. And a lot of the principles may be applied across disciplines. So, and more I see that many of these books that are written can really work for different disciplines. So definitely, I could see how that book could be applicable to other people outside of STEM. Now, Dr. Martin, do you have an encouragement or a challenge for our viewers?
Yeah, I do. I would encourage everyone to make some small changes, as maybe along the lines that I've discussed. Try something new in your course and consider these smaller assessments that are, I'm going to say it again, focused on the learning objectives. But try the smaller assessments versus one big midterm or and final exam approach. And I'm always wanting to promote having empathy as faculty members for our students. And I want to make sure that doesn't mean we coddle them, but I think that what we want to do is to try new approaches that will help them and maybe take some of that pressure off. So make a small change today. That would be my encouragement.
Wow, well said. And I really liked how you just wrapped it up in empathy there, because with all the strategies that we have, if we do not have a little bit of empathy going along with it, you know, students might not even appreciate what we are doing. Many of us are familiar with the adage that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so thank you very much for sharing your strategies with us today, Dr. Martin. It has been a pleasure to be with you in this summit. And to our viewers, I would encourage you to share this conversation with others. All are welcome to subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode of this Works For Me virtual summit. See you soon.